You know, every single day, our entire digital lives, I'm talking messages, money, all our secrets, they're all behind this wall of supposedly unbreakable codes. We just trust them, right? But what if the strongest locks out there have a secret hidden weakness? What if unbreakable isn't really unbreakable at all? So let's just jump right in. The big question is this: how in the world do you break a code that's, well, mathematically perfect? I mean, the math is totally solid, the algorithm is secure, so where do you even start? Well, here's the secret, and it's a big one. You don't attack the code. You actually ignore the math altogether. See, the real weak spot isn't in the algorithm itself, it's in the physical, imperfect hardware that's running the code. The machine itself literally gives away the secrets it's supposed to be protecting. And you know, this whole idea, attacking the system instead of the code, it's not new at all. In fact, it goes back over 1,000 years. Yeah, to really get this, we've got to take a trip back in time, way back, to meet the very first codebreakers. So, this is Al-Kindi. We're talking the 9th century here. This guy was a total polymath, philosopher, scientist, but he was also, get this, the world's first documented cryptanalyst. He had this brilliant realization that even when a message is totally scrambled, it still carries like a ghost of its original language inside. He called his method frequency analysis, and it's just so simple, it's brilliant. Think about it. In English, the letter E is by far the most common. So if you're looking at a secret message and one weird symbol keeps popping up over and over again, odds are that symbol is E. The cipher was literally leaking information. And that core idea, that the system can leak clues about the secret it's holding, that's exactly how we break so-called unbreakable codes today. Okay, so let's fast forward to right now. We've gone from looking at letters on a page to listening to the tiny electronic whispers of a silicon chip. But here's the crazy part. The principle is exactly the same. The tools, though, they're a whole lot more advanced. Right, and this modern version is called a side channel attack. So instead of hunting for flaws in the math, attackers are looking for physical tells, you know? Every single time a computer does a calculation, it uses a teeny tiny bit of power, it creates a faint electromagnetic field, and it takes a very specific amount of time. None of that is part of the code itself, they're just side effects. But those side effects, man, they are just full of secrets. Okay, check this out. What you're looking at here is basically the heartbeat of a cryptographic operation. This graph, it shows the power being used by a smart card while it's encrypting data. And it's using an algorithm called DES, which was a huge deal, a worldwide standard for years. You can literally see the 16 rounds, the different steps of the algorithm, as these clear rhythmic spikes. It's like the hardware is just broadcasting a blueprint of its secret work for anyone to see. And it gets even crazier when you zoom in. So what we have here are two power traces from two different operations. They look exactly the same. Until, boom, the 6th clock cycle. Right there. At that exact moment, the processor made a decision based on a single secret bit of the encryption key. Just 1 0 or 1 created this fork in the road, and that made a tiny but totally measurable difference in how much power it used, a difference an attacker can spot. So you're probably wondering, how on earth do they find that one tiny signal buried in all that noise? Well, the answer is statistics. An attacker just makes a guess. They guess one little piece of the key. Then they compare thousands of these power traces. If the guess is wrong, everything just looks like random static, kind of like those bottom lines. But if the guess is right, all the signals line up perfectly, and this huge spike just shoots up out of the noise. You see it right there in that top trace. That spike, that's the eureka moment. It's a dead giveaway that they found a piece of the key. So here's the bottom line. It doesn't matter if you have the best mathematical lock in the entire world if you leave the key taped to the door, right? The physical hardware itself can leak just enough information to make perfect encryption totally useless. And this whole principle, that the system around the secret can betray the secret itself, it doesn't just apply to a single little chip. Oh no, it scales up in a massive way when we start talking about the cloud. Yeah, when we move to the cloud, we're not worried about some person in a lab with an oscilloscope anymore. We're worried about thousands of interconnected systems, incredibly complex permissions, and all these APIs. The machine that we can attack isn't just a piece of hardware anymore. It's the whole dang ecosystem. You know, the old way of thinking about security was pretty simple. You had your servers, you put them in a locked room, you controlled who could physically touch the machine. Simple. But in the cloud, it's a whole different ballgame. Security is all about identity and access management, or IAM. Basically, it's a giant rulebook that decides who gets to do what. And those rules are all handled through APIs. Think of them as digital doorways to your data. So it's not about who can touch the machine anymore. It's about who has the digital keys to open those doors. And this is something that keeps security professionals up at night. Get this number. A staggering 83% of experts think their own companies are at serious risk of a breach. And not because of bad encryption. No, it's because of a simple cloud misconfiguration. It's basically the modern-day version of that side channel leak, but instead of leaking a key bit, it leaks access to the entire system. Just look at the Capital One breach from a few years back. The attacker didn't have to break a single line of fancy encryption. They just found an unlocked window, a misconfigured firewall. They reached right through that window, grabbed the keys, the access credentials, and then just waltzed right in the digital front door. And from the system's perspective, they looked totally legitimate. The locks on the doors were perfect. The problem was, the building's architecture was just flawed. Or take the ChaosDB vulnerability in Azure. That was another perfect storm. It all started with just one insecure feature that was, you won't believe it, turned on by default. That one tiny crack was all an attacker needed to kick off a chain reaction. They used that first little foothold to steal credentials, then they got control of management systems. And in the end, they walked away with the primary encryption keys. I mean, game over. The math was perfect, but the implementation, that was the leak. So this cat and mouse game, right, between the people making the codes and the people breaking them, it's always evolving. It never stops. So what's next? What does the future hold? Well, the threats are getting even more exotic. Looming on the horizon is the quantum threat. We're talking about a powerful quantum computer that could, one day, just chew through the hard math problems that our modern encryption is built on. All that unbreakable math we rely on today, it could suddenly become very, very breakable. But don't worry, the defenders are already building the next generation of walls. For instance, some are working on confidential computing, basically creating these super secure digital vaults right inside the hardware. Others are developing post-quantum cryptography, which is a whole new kind of math that even a quantum computer couldn't crack. And then there's this really clever tactic called multi-party computing, where you split the secret key into a bunch of pieces so no single person or system ever has the whole thing. But there's a new wild card in the game, AI. Remember all those noisy power traces we looked at? Well, you can train a machine learning model to spot those tiny, key-leaking patterns way, way faster than any human ever could. AI might just become the ultimate accelerator for these side-channel attacks, making them way easier and way more dangerous than ever before. Which, leaves us with a pretty crucial question to think about. It's a good reminder that security isn't some destination you arrive at, it's a constant process. The strongest lock is only secure until someone figures out a new way to pick it or just finds the key hidden under the doormat. So the real challenge isn't just about building stronger walls, it's about constantly, and I mean constantly, checking for open windows.